My favorite person to talk to on set is the man with the camera, and that's who I've got today, cinematographer Andrew Russo here on the Fly Filmmaking.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
Hey everyone, welcome back to On the Fly Filmmaking. I'm Marielou Mandl, your host, and I am here talking with the cinematographer Andrew Russo. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, tell me about this song that you chose for us to open to. I like it. It's funky. I've never heard it.
Sissy Strut. It's a band called The Meters. They're a New Orleans funk band from the 60s and 70s. Still play today, and one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah, that's great. I'm always looking for new music, so this is definitely going to go in my circulation.
Really, check it out. They're
I
amazing.
love it. This is like cool. Like you can edit to this and like just hang out. Yeah, it's great.
It's that backbeat. You know, you got the dance and the backbeat. It's awesome.
Just feel great. I love it. Awesome. So you are here chatting with us about cinematography, and you have done all sorts of movies. Most recently, JACKALS, which is now out in some theaters and streaming online.
Correct.
It came out at the beginning of September, so you guys definitely go check that out, JACKALS. But I want to talk to you about your career first before we get into that. So Andrew, you can find on his website, awrusso.com, also on Instagram and Facebook. You can find him there. So let's check out your reel.
I'm coming up only to show you down for, and coming up only to show you wrong. To the outside, the dead leaves, they are alive. For they die and have trees hang their fall.
Very nice,
All right.
Andrew. Yeah, you've done a lot of stuff and a lot of varied kind of projects, it looks like. And so this was your like film reel. You also have commercial projects that I saw on there as well. So you do everything.
I try. I mean, you know, a lot of it's just what comes on in front of you. So, but it's nice to have that kind of diversity and just, you know, have fun with different projects. And
Right
it's
on.
fun to just do different genres and explore, you know, your craft in those different ways. So.
All right. Well, then let's explain for the folks at home that may not know what to you as a cinematographer or director of photography.
Sure. So it's the same thing, cinematographer, director of photography, and essentially you're the head of the camera department, and you are also in charge of the lighting, which is composed of the grip department and the electric department. And those three departments essentially tell the story through the camera. So you work very closely with the director, try and make his or her vision come to life. And it's, you know, for me, it's a job that is a lot of advising and best practices, and we're setting out to do something. How can we accomplish that? And people have visions in their head about what they want to do, and then it's about how do we execute that, and how can I get as close to what you want as possible, and bringing in your own creativity and your own ideas and stuff like that. So, but it's really about what lenses you choose, how you move the camera, and how you light the set.
Right. And the combination of all of these things serve to telling the story, creating a mood, and like really portraying what it is that the director wants in the project.
Precisely.
Yeah. So it's really great. And so do you find, I know not all cinematographers run the camera. Are you one that runs the camera sometimes or not?
Yeah, I love operating.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in there with the actors, and I love being the first person to experience it. So if I have that camera and I'm operating, I mean, every move that I do, it's really, I'm the first audience member to receive it. So
Yeah.
I love that dance, I call it, really with the talent, with the actors. It doesn't always make sense if it's 2 cameras or more for me to operate. So sometimes I do have to take a step back and get behind the monitors and work with operators. And sometimes you're just too busy to do both. But I do love operating. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really great that you do operate, because I think that, and I've never had somebody say it as they are the first audience member.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And like, I know when I'm shooting things, like sometimes I have somebody else that is filming and I'm just kind of giving direction on like what kind of shots that I need. But when I'm the one that's filming it, it's just a totally different experience.
Yeah, and I'm notorious for doing 2 takes one way, and then all of a sudden just feeling something from the actors and just being like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to get a little closer to you.
Yeah.
I want to get a little further back, or I want to do a little movement. Which, you know, luckily I've got amazing first ACs that, you know, deal with my
They can roll with
shenanigans all
you.
the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, to me there's so much feeling in that. And I really am trying to experience it and want to do that move at the right time, and you
Right.
know, and because I'm feeling it, you know.
Right. And then so much of how you frame it, how you film it, changes the feeling of the scene. Like, so I recently saw Mother, and it's like there's so much in just the way that the film is composed and how it stays for most of the movie that really creates a feeling.
Yeah, and they were. I haven't seen the movie, but I read an article about it. They were very careful in limiting the palette, showing it from Jennifer Lawrence's point of view. I believe Maddie Libatique went so far as to, I think they shot the movie before they shot the movie. I mean, literally
Yeah.
moved the camera with actors and did like a huge long rehearsal process. And it's amazing to be able to do something like that, because like that, to me, prep is everything.
Yeah.
And when you're able to do that degree of prep, like it's all execution at that point. So, and it's fun, happy ideas and accidents and whatever comes along with all that preparation you've done. So anyway, you know, very interesting. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely recommend that to anybody for just filmmaking in general. It's great storytelling, but when you're watching it and you're thinking about cinematography, just consider like the choices that they made and how that told the story. And I think that that's probably something that you experience all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to me, every decision you make it really should be in service to the story.
Yes.
Whether it be the lighting, the camera, how it moves. I'm not a big fan of huge shots that call attention to themselves. I feel like one of the best compliments you can get is that it looked amazing, but I didn't think about it. I just watched. I was engrossed in the movie, you know, and that was something that someone said to me on Jackals, and I was
Yes.
like, yes, that's what I want. I want people to be so into the story that that's all they're thinking about, and the characters and what they're going through. It's like I've done my job if that's what I can do,
Right. And then
and it looks good.
Yes, and it did look very good. Jackals, I thought, was really great. And I guess what I was thinking about most of the time is I have trouble with low light anything, because usually I'm just like a crew of one. It's
Right.
just me. So I'm like, move the light. Okay, hold on. Let me be right back. But it's, you know, like seeing that and knowing like I know the struggles I have with doing that. But that movie was mostly dark.
Yeah.
They're in a cabin. They're in the forest.
Yeah, the power gets cut off about 20 minutes into the movie. So for the rest of the film, all we had was a fireplace and lanterns that the family had previous that came out of the closet, and then moonlight. And the bad guys, the jackals, turn on the car lights as well to
Yes.
bring an ominous presence to them. And that was it. And trying to, when you're shooting a movie, you're not shooting in sequence for the most part. So trying to remember where lanterns were from the previous scene. I mean, I had a page by page analysis of every scene inside and where the lanterns had gone to, so that it made sense that they, dance around the way they do. So we had to leave one somewhere to then know that needed to be picked up. And I think you watch the movie and you don't even, no one even realized it, but for my own sanity, I knew that I needed to get this lantern here for this next scene so that it could light my my lead actress and yada, yada, yada. So it was very difficult. And we were using, at the time, LEDs were not as big as they are today in the film world. They were still very accessible.
When were you filming this?
This was the end of 2015.
Okay.
So I just mean like sky panels weren't around, light panels, or light mats weren't around. people were definitely using light ribbon to like light underneath things, just a really thin ribbon, and that's what we use. I had a guy in Glendale, this Armenian man who's been doing electronics for years, who's just a saint. I like, you know, I was like, I'm gonna build these lanterns, because I basically had to build 7 lanterns that would flicker a little bit, that had LEDs in there on battery packs. And I knew you had to score the bottom of them, you had to put the battery pack in there, I had to gel the light so it was the right color. It was crazy, you know. So and this man, I like maybe a week out, I visited, I got his number from one of the electronic places I was trying to figure out how to build these things at, and he's like, yeah, I'll have them to you in like 3 weeks. And I'm like, look, man, I start a movie in a week. Is there anything you can do? And he's like, I'll take care of you. And I'm like, and he did, and they were amazing, and you know, he got a credit in the movie. I was like, come to the set, you know, he was such a sweetheart. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
those are solutions on the fly. Because I was going to ask you, like, how did you keep these lanterns going the whole time? Because you crafted these electronic ones, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant solution, because I just can't imagine.
Yeah, and just making, you know, my crew, Chelsea, my poor Best Boy Electric, her job was just to make sure there was a fresh battery in those every like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I, you know, at the screening saw her and, you know, thanked her again profusely. So anyway.
Yeah, for being battery babe.
Oh, she's such a battery babe. She's awesome.
Yeah.
She's awesome. So
Awesome. All right, well then let's check out the trailer for Jackals, and you can see what we were talking about.
Looks like someone wants Nana.
Don't bother.
Can I have her back? I know, I'm crazy. You're a mom.
Someone out there. Hey! You're on private property.
What are they doing?
Nothing.
Look at these pigs, lined up for slaughter.
What did you do?
Where's the baby? My brothers and sisters. We need all the babies we can get. They are the future, after all.
Touring with you. You're not gonna stop.
Here, piggy, 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 piggy.
Don't be scared, Sam. We're all gonna make it out of this, I promise.
So stressful.
It is stressful, but it's fun making them, you know. But
Yeah.
watching it is very stressful. My
Yeah.
wife, like, she just, you know, she went to the premiere, and then some friends and I got together, and she's like, I don't want to go again.
That's it.
Yeah,
It's
just-
a one-time deal.
Like, you have to. You don't have a choice. She's like, all right, well, I'm gonna cover my eyes all the time because I know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen. Anyway.
Oh, but it was good. I really enjoyed it, and like I watch movies thinking about what's behind the scenes, especially when it's a scary movie. Like I went to see It with a friend of mine, and she was freaking out. She's an actress, and I was like, listen, you've been on sets. You know there's like 100 people standing around this thing that's happening, so it's okay. And she's like, all right, it kind of helps. It kind of helps. Still got a little scared, but you know,
That's why we go to see them too. You
yes,
know, that's a
it is
big
part of the
it.
fun.
Yeah,
it is part of the
absolutely.
fun. But I can't help but overanalyze everything. So like even here, we're watching this. Like I saw lanterns, I saw the car lights, even torches sometimes.
Yep,
you
there
know.
was torches in there.
Yeah, and those are the things that you have to work with. But on set, you're actually dealing with more
Oh,
than
yeah.
that. You're
Yeah.
faking it with other lights.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're shooting in a practical location like we were, you know, cheating the fireplace was just a challenge. I mean, it was because it wasn't a big space to be shooting in the first place, And then we've got, you know, basically a light rig, which just composed. It was like a couple of, I think it was like 3 or 4 1Ks on a Magic Gadget, which is a dimmer, which basically just changes the level of light. So it feels like fire on the walls, but fire would never give you that much light.
Yeah.
Well, not, I mean, depending on what camera you shot.
Right.
And that thing just had to keep, it was like on one side of the fireplace, and then we'd have to go on the other side. It was just like constantly going back and forth, and we could kind of never shoot that way because I needed that thing to be there,
Yeah.
or else it all fell apart. So, you know, in the lanterns, you know, I have a gaffer that I use all the time. He couldn't do this one. His name's Kevin Skaggs. He built these things called light cubes, which are essentially, it's a light bulb or can be an array of 3 or 6 with muslin wrapped around it. Beautiful soft sources, you know, very economical. Tungsten, which, you know, is going the way of the dodo, but, you know, just regular light bulbs,
Yeah.
Edison bulbs. But beautiful, like, light and perfect for this because I could just put it on one person and then that was it. I mean, you know, a lot of the decisions you make with lighting, you know, you kind of know you want to shoot with contrast. You kind of have an idea of where you want the light in relationship to the camera, in relationship to the place someone's looking. But a lot of it is too, where do you want your shadow to go? Where do you want to project that light? Because that light doesn't stop at someone's face. It keeps going, right?
Yeah.
So you have to have an understanding of not only where the light is and what it's doing, but where is it going to keep playing in your world? And how do you avoid it? So when you do a movie like this that's, you know, very contrasty and low light, and 80% of the frame is dark, you have to be really careful to thread the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you're not even just worried about the light and what it's projecting on the screen, but if it's like accidentally on your crew and like there's a shadow that's not supposed to be there.
Absolutely. Oh, that too. I mean, there's all kinds of you know, things and limitations. You know, lighting and camera, when you're going for something like this, they're always in contrast with each other. A competition, I mean, with each other. Because what's good for camera, like doing crazy fun moves all around the room, you know, is not always good for lighting. You know, what's
Yeah.
good for lighting, just sitting there and looking one way and having that perfect light coming from one side, like, you know, Mad Men or something like that, you know, is good for light. So how do these balance? What decision do you make? Who wins the fight, so to
Right.
speak? You know, can they work in harmony? That's the real job, I think, of a cinematographer, is how do you how do you toe the line between these two things?
Which is such a contrast from when we were talking to the cinematographer of Transparent. They have a 360 set.
Exactly.
And he just follows them around. It's
Yep.
like lit realistically in all directions,
Yep.
and he just goes.
And there, I love that kind of stuff too. And it's just it really comes from what's the story, what's important, what is the director, what's the most important thing for the director. You know, if the director wants to shoot 3 cameras all at the same time, then you just find a way to light it, and camera kind of trumps lighting. If the director said, no, this is single camera, like I want these very precise moves, and we're going to do 3 takes or 6 takes before we get a good one, then you do that. So you have to be adaptive as a cinematographer.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. And don't make a production something it's not. Don't make a script something it's not. Don't make a production something it's not.
Elaborate on that.
Well, like, for instance, if you don't have the money to make a $10 million movie, then don't try and make a $10 million
Yes.
movie. You know, like, know your limitations. So, like, for instance, with Jackals, it was a very aggressive shoot schedule.
Right,
did
you
this
said it was
in-
15
it was
days?
15 days for principal photography, and then we did 2 days of pickups. And the 2 days of pickups was all content that was not scripted originally. They were all scenes that were added to the movie later. So I forgot what we were just talking about. It was
Not staying within your limitations.
staying with the limitations. Thank you. So, you know, one thing I knew I would probably have to get rid of right off the bat was backlight. I mean, I knew that it was just going to take too much time to move what's called a menace arm, which is essentially just a big piece of speed rail that it's on some kind of stand, and then you hang a light off the side, and you hang it so you don't have to see the stand, but you put the light right behind someone to backlight them. And I knew that wasn't going to be a possibility just because it was going to take too much time up.
Yeah.
To flip this thing for every scene. And, you know, you don't want to do things like block shoot. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. And block shooting just means that you're going to face one direction for multiple scenes and then turn around and then do those multiple scenes again. It's not very good for actors. I'm not a big proponent of it. I asked the question, but if it's an emotional scene or if there's anything that requires, real, you know.
Yeah, they need to stay connected.
Exactly.
As much as possible, you want to help them out because it's all
Yeah.
collaborative. You want everybody to be able to do the best job possible.
Yeah, and I mean that to me is what the job is also is
Yeah.
just creating an environment where you let these people work,
Mm-hmm.
which it can be tricky in a movie like this because you are so specific with where your light is. But you know, I was working with total pros.
Yeah.
And everyone was amazing on the set, so it was never an issue. And if anything, people, you know, these specific group of actors would come up to you and be like, "Okay, where do you need me? Where do I need to be? Okay, how can I do this for you?" It was great. It was really
Yeah.
nice to have a collaboration with them and them to be amazing. So.
Yeah, those are always the best kind of sets to be on, a collaborative things like that where everybody is trying to do what they can to make it easier for everyone else.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, everyone had a good experience from this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think people enjoyed making it, even though it was extremely difficult in so many regards.
Yeah.
But it was a good set. It was a good group of people.
Yeah,
you
what were
know?
some of the difficulties that you guys came across?
Well, you know, we were shooting in December, and it got I think it got close to below freezing.
Where were you guys at?
We were only up in Thousand Oaks.
Oh.
So, and that's what was, you go, oh, it shouldn't freeze up there.
Yeah.
It got so cold up there that it like, we had to do a whole, I think the last week of the movie, Stephen Dorff came on for the last week of the movie, and when he runs outside and he's chasing after this fox girl who's part of the Jackals, he's in a t-shirt, and
Yeah.
it was like 32 degrees, 35
So
degrees.
cold.
But he was such a pro and was in it just to really be the character. And you know, when I remember reading the script, and I liked the character of Jimmy, but he just brought so much to it. I mean, he just grounded that character in such an amazing way.
And of course he didn't feel the cold. He's a vampire.
Yeah, well, yeah, that helped. I was very, he was laughing. We were having a good
Oh,
time.
great.
He got strung up by,
Yeah.
you know, a rope and got his stomach slashed. Sorry, that's probably a spoiler alert right there. But he was a total sport. I mean, he was
Yeah.
great. Yeah, he was great to work with. So.
Good. Oh, that's great. And I was really happy to see him in a movie again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's doing great. He was it was super fun.
So what kind of cameras did you use for this?
We shot on at the time. We shot on two Arri Alexas that were 2K Alexas, and I think the Amira had come out and the Mini had just come out, but really because our budget, we couldn't afford the 4K cameras at the time. They were just too in demand and too expensive. And actually, one of the nice things about it, I was like, well, I was happy about it at first because. And this is before YouTube and Hulu and Netflix require a 4K. Now that they require 4K, I was like, oh, I gotta shoot 4K.
Right.
Which is understandable. But it brought the cost down on the camera, so we could afford it more. So honestly, like, one of the tips that I would give to filmmakers out there is, like, unless you need 4K or something bigger, go find an Arri Alexa Classic 2K. This was the industry standard
Yes.
for a good amount of time. Guardians of the Galaxy, The Revenant. I mean, all these movies were shot on this 2K beautiful camera.
Yeah, and it all looks great. So sometimes I go back and forth with the 4K debate because of budgetary things where everyone's like, I must have 4K. But you don't have to have it.
No.
You only have to have it if you have to have it, if you have the budget for it.
And if it's a deliverable. I mean, if
Yes.
it's a deliverable, then you
yes.
have to.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what your deliverable is, but
Yeah,
if
YouTube
that's the thing, like,
level, like you watch it on a cell phone, so
right,
it's not
right.
a big
Well,
deal.
You say that, but then I did a show called Foursome, which is a YouTube Red show. Did the first season, we did that 2K, no problem. The second season came along, and they're like, no, you have to shoot 4K, and I was like, well, can we shoot? We can just do Arri Mini, which is not a true 4K, it's a UHD 4K. And they're like, let me check. And I'm like, are you guys serious? I can't shoot on the best camera, in my opinion, out there, and I'm not alone because of this. Excuse me. Luckily, they were like, no, it's fine, you can do that. But that was the thing. From one season to the next, the switch just turned on us. And we had to shoot with, more robust, expensive cameras. But I get it. Those places are protecting for the future. So they
Which
don't,
makes sense.
Which makes sense.
But also, sometimes I feel it's a little more buzzwordy. It's a little like,
is.
we shot it in 4K, isn't that great?
Yeah.
And it looks wonderful. You can scale it. You can do all sorts of stuff with it.
And if you're doing effects work, certainly those cameras are great. I have a friend who does a lot of Katy Perry music videos, and he shoots with a helium because it's an 8K camera, and the effects guys want that desperately. They want all that detail in the pixels and to
So you can get in there
comps and better green
yeah.
screens and all that stuff. So it's
Yeah.
just about
There's reasons for it. There's definitely reasons for
they're
it.
tools, and just like anything, you just want to use the right tool for the right job, basically.
Yeah, but then I like what you're saying about your limitations and working within your limitations. So if you're an indie filmmaker, you're not doing any effects.
Correct.
You're just trying to get the best camera you can afford. You don't have to necessarily push for that.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to. If you can, awesome.
You can buy I think you can buy a 2K Alexa for like $10,000,
Yeah.
which is insane considering it was like probably like it was like $125,000 a couple years ago.
And this is the tool that major movies were made on.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Beautiful movies.
Yeah, it's accessible.
It's very accessible.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that's the whole reason why indie filmmaking has gotten the budgets have gone down, but it's also not as expensive to make them. It's a big part of that culture now.
Yeah.
Is what digital film kind of did for people. So.
All right.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the other projects that you've worked on. Like, so what we saw on your reel, I see like some light and bright stuff.
Right.
That's really, a totally different feel than what Jackals is.
Well, you like to think you can be a chameleon, and you read a story and you feel a certain way about it. So I've done a couple movies for Lifetime, and so Jackals, I was just like, let the fill go, and there is a lot of detail. It was hard to see on that monitor, but there is still some detail in the blacks in that. But for a movie like I did called Murder in Mexico, it was a Lifetime movie. So, and this was a couple years back. And I knew I had to put more light in the fill. I just did. It's funny. It actually took more time to do that because I had to protect so much more for everything. But whether or not you're doing a movie with, you're doing on one side of the spectrum, which is like a movie called a TV show called Foursome, which is a high school comedy, to like Gone Are the Days, which is a Western that I have coming out through Lionsgate at the beginning of the year, or Jackals. My thought process is the same. It's like you always are going to have a key of fill and a backlight, whether it's there or not. The concept is always going to be there for your talent, right? And then the way I light or like to think about my lighting is, as much as it's important to think about this, I think about the background first. So how do I want the world to feel? And then you kind of light forward. So what texture do I want to have in the background? What practicals do I want to see? You talk, at length with your production designer about, okay, if possible, can I get a lamp here, a lamp here, a lamp here, knowing the blocking, just so you have some source to kind of come from. If you're doing that, it just depends on what you're doing. But yeah, it's one light at a time for me. I think about it one light at a time. I sometimes, and it doesn't happen often, but you try and get all the lights set up, and then it's just, okay, turn that one on. What's that doing? Great. Turn the next one on. Now, you don't have that time always, and because the more you do this, the more you don't have to do that. But when you're first doing this, it's great to understand what you're getting from every light, to understand what it's doing, to then make corrections as need be.
Right, and that's something that folks that are making their own projects at home, they're like very basic level. You just want to try to shoot something. You point a camera at a room and mess with the lights and see what's coming from where.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, it's very practical for any level. And and I think when lighting really starts to click, it's when you start really understanding how light interacts with the face, what the quality of it, the direction of it, the angle, the quantity, and getting all these levels in a good place. Anyway.
Yeah, I remember like old school trying to like light a little scene for something, and like my actor's standing there. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hold this lamp at you. It's just like the lamp that's in the bedroom, just like gonna tilt it. I'm like, it's a little weird, but we're gonna go with it.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
I need more light on you. Just tilt the lamp. Okay, that's more.
It's fine, right?
Yeah,
It'll work.
I can see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll do.
Action.
Go. You're
go.
wonderful. You're
Yeah.
beautiful.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. And I'm like holding the camera and the light and like just craziness. But that's how you learn. You
That's how
go
you
and
learn.
try things.
Yeah.
So I would love to know about how you've learned and how you got started on this path.
Sure. I actually didn't pick up a camera, any kind of video camera or film camera. That wasn't still until I went to USC. But before that, in high school, I took a lot of black and white photography, learned how to develop my own film and my own prints on enlarger. And in college, I still took pictures, but I was doing other things, figuring out my life, and then I came to California, And within about a year and a half or 2 years, I got into USC, thinking I wanted to be a writer or director. And those are probably two of the worst jobs I could think to have for me.
Yeah. And why is that?
Writing's tough, you know, because it's not about how good of a writer you are, it's how good of a rewriter you are. It's, okay, I've written problems, how do I solve them? How do I get anyone to read my script is a whole other thing. And how do
Yeah.
I get honest notes from people? Directing, oh my goodness, getting good performances, telling a good story.
Yeah.
Very difficult for someone like me. You know, in post, making it work and figuring out what the problems are just wasn't my mindset. You know, moving the camera, choosing the lens, lighting. It's just very natural.
It felt
to me.
right.
It does. And
Which is something that I tell people all the time when they're like, I want to get into filmmaking. And I was like, well, explore all of your options,
Yes.
which is what we try to do on this show, and highlight all the different positions, because you went in thinking you wanted to be a writer or director and then
Absolutely.
realized, oh, wait, no, thank you.
it's just totally not for
But
me.
found a place that was right for you.
And I love where I'm
Yeah.
at. I love being a cinematographer. It's perfect for me.
Yeah. How was that discovery? How did that come about?
Well, at USC, I did really kind of gravitate toward the camera. And my projects didn't look so bad, you know, the first semester, the second semester. And I learned on film, which was kind of nice, black and white film, which was a reversal stock, which I don't think they make anymore.
Yeah. Do they even do that anymore?
You know
in
what? Kodak
schools?
is bringing back some.
Okay.
I think it's a color stock they're bringing back. There wasn't the black and white. I think they're still doing some black and white. Schools do not do that, though.
Right.
I mean, for the most part,
It's-
even USC.
It's got to be too expensive
Doesn't
if
do
they
film
don't have
anymore.
to. Just learn on digital.
It's not only is it's the money, but it's also just impractical. I mean, we live in a world where, in my opinion, digital cameras are doing things that replicate film very well. Is it film? No. You know, will it ever be film? It will probably get closer and closer and closer.
Yeah.
But there is something organic about film that is very tangible to me, and I do have a reaction to. But I'm in the very small percentage of people that probably even care about that.
Right.
So anyway, at USC, just got good with camera, got good at lighting. I remember the shoot where lighting clicked for me, like it was yesterday, and it was like an epiphany. Like it was like bells were ringing and birds were flying in slow motion. I felt like, oh, I get it. Like I understand when I put a light here or here, it's totally different.
Yeah.
And it just like it was an epiphany that it made me realize how much I love this more than anything. And being a cinematographer. And, you know, USC was a great training ground because I wouldn't have been able to get that experience had I not just had a camera in my hand for 3 years. It's a 3-year program.
Yeah.
And you try and get better at what you do. And in my third year, I shot a thesis film that I was lucky enough to win an ASC award for, the Heritage Award it's called. You know, that was a big moment for me to go to this place where you see all these people that you just respect, and they're really wonderful people. It felt like a community that I'd like to be a part of one day, and it still is a major goal for me. Being in the AAC is not a major goal for me. Doing work that I'm proud of, that, you know, people acknowledge as being good, I mean, that's nice. I'm the toughest critic on me,
Of
and I
course.
will always be. But it's nice when your fellow cinematographers you know, want to invite you into their club. You know?
Yeah.
And it's funny because cinematographers are the only people that know what I go through on a daily basis, and I feel like I need to have a support group for us.
Right. You find your tribe.
Exactly.
And those are the people that get what you do.
Exactly. And it's
it-
fun to talk about that because people on set don't know. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
directors don't really know what we go through, you know, costume designers. I mean, everyone has their own thing that they go
Yeah.
through, and it's nice to have that community.
Yeah, everybody has their own little like pocket of drama, or not necessarily drama, but like triumphs and failures
Yeah.
and like things that they have to go
And
through.
frustrations
Yeah.
and happy places.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
because like the simplest thing, like, it might look super simple, but like to you and other cinematographers, it'd be like, oh my God, did you see that this thing happened? And you know, it's really great. So speaking of things that work that you're proud of, what are some projects that meet that for you?
Well, I would say that The Ambassador's Wife was something I was really proud of, and that was what I won an ASC award for.
And what was it about that?
You know, I think it was the way we told the story. It was the lighting. Excuse me. It was it was the characters. I mean, I watched that and I feel like I feel like I'm connecting to the characters, and I want to I want to empathize with them, and I want to, I want to go for the ride with them. I felt like we did a good job on that one. Gone Are the Days is a Western I have coming out that I just think that as far as my contribution as a cinematographer is probably something I'm the most proud of because of a consistency. And, I probably on average will like 85% of the work I do in a movie. And that was closer to like 92%.
Oh, it's high then.
Yeah. And that 15%, I like want to like do Harry Carey and like spill my guts because I'm like, oh, I hate that. And I most people hopefully don't see it, but Jackals is certainly up there, and I have a movie coming out hopefully at the beginning of the year called Nightmare Cinema, which was an anthology, a horror anthology with the legend Mick Garris and Joe Dante, and those were so fun to make.
Yeah, and that sounds so exciting.
Yeah. And I got to work with Mickey Rourke, which was interesting. He's a character.
Yeah.
And literally plays a character that is just so scary.
Oh my god.
I know. It's like the first time you see him on the screen, you're just like, oh my god, like that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And he just has such a presence about him.
Did you have that experience from looking like off camera and then onto camera, like in the lens, being like, oh my gosh, who is this creeper?
No, I mean he came in. It was he was a very nice guy, and he you always it's Hollywood, so you hear stories. But he was great to work with, and he didn't come in looking like that. He came in looking like a big teddy bear, and then once he transformed into this outfit and became this thing, it was almost like schizophrenic. It was like scary to see this thing lurking and then come out of him.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Great. So then, as far as like doing stuff on the fly.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a lot of your project, like Jackals, was only 15 days of principal photography, and I think you've mentioned like a bunch of the other ones were all on the fly.
Yeah.
What are some tips and tricks that you have for people?
Make your day. That's a good tip.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, you set out to shoot a scene, and there's always going to probably be more shots than you need. If you can get them all and more, great. If the schedule is aggressive, then know what you need, and then just break out the red pen. As a DP, don't be the one to break out the red pen unless you have to. I mean, that's really a conversation you need to have with your director to be like, what do we absolutely feel like we need? What can we maybe pick up later, or what do we not have to get? So just making your days important on a budget, on an independent movie that doesn't have a lot of days. So work quickly.
Yes.
So don't be an idiot. No, don't make a production something it's not.
Right.
Know that you have to do this in 15 days. In Jackals, don't add a bunch of backlights because you're going to bone yourself out and you're not going to make your days.
Yeah.
Prep. Just because a movie doesn't have money doesn't mean you should be less involved in a prep. If anything, you should do more prep than if you have less money. And that's tough because a lot of indie films will say, well, we can pay you for 2 weeks. And, my response to that is, thank you, I'm going to work for 4. Because I don't know how to do a project like that with only 2 weeks of prep.
Yeah.
So in that movie, Kevin and I, the director, we sat down for a month. We watched movies. We went to the location 4 or 5 times. We took pictures of the locations. We brought the mask there. We got one day where we could do a test. And it was only for like a couple hours. And we just squeezed as much as we could into that test to make sure it was all going to work. So prepare. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. And the truth is, prep is so important because it's like if you're in a band, you're going to rehearse before you get on stage together. If you play football, you're going to run a scrimmage and practice, and do routes and get on the same page with whoever, you're playing with. So to me, it's like it only makes you better the more you prepare. As I'm sure you know.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to prepare more than you think you should.
You can't over prepare. It's not even possible. You brought up Mother before, and they shot the movie before they shot the movie. That's preparation. David Fincher did the same thing on Panic Room. He basically shot the movie. It worked for him. Great. Now we can't all do that because we don't have the money to do that degree of preparation. Birdman was the same way. But you know, the idea is the same. Is read the script. You don't read it once or twice or 3 times. You read it 7 or 8 times. You know your scenes. You know every morning you come to set and you're gonna get sides, right? And when I found that is that if I see the scene number and I know my shots without even looking at the scene, I feel like I'm half prepared for the day, you know, and it's always going to change, and you're going to get into a scene, and we thought about it was going to be this, the blocking, and now, no, I'm going to go sit over there instead. So you need to reconceive everything you thought it was going to be, but it makes you a better filmmaker when you prepare because you can think more off the cuff. You can let that magic happen,
right?
Because you have such a strong foundation,
right? It's like you prepare so you can easily
execute.
Go off of it.
Absolutely. And
So
then
like-
it's all execution at that point. There's no like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? If you have a really good idea of what you're already doing, it's just execution, and that makes you a better filmmaker.
And then it opens up your brain power for problem solving because there's always going to be problems. But if
Always.
you've already prepared and you have, like you said, a good foundation, then when the curveball gets thrown at you, you're not already just worrying about like, how are we going to do this basic thing? It's like, okay, now let's focus. How are we going to fix that? Great, done.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah, you can troubleshoot way faster, and be more inspired. I mean, that's the other side of it. You really can find more inspiration if you have a good foundation.
Right, and then you're not wasting time on the basic thing. You can do like what you said, where you're like, okay, we did it 2 ways, the way that we initially thought. Now let's explore. Now let's try something different.
Yeah.
Let's get in there.
Yeah, it's like we had this idea. Man, this idea is pretty great. Like, what if we did this instead? Yeah, I like that.
But you might not have got to this other great idea had the
No,
foundation not be
you
set.
wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have. And I think the best filmmakers in the world get to that moment we're talking about fast.
Yes.
So like Mick Garris and Joe Dante, that was my experience with both of them. Is they had a really clear idea what they wanted. We did have a decent prep period. I had more prep with Mick than I did with Joe, but you know, there was that concept of like, I know how this is going to work out. What if we did this instead? And then building a block on that and be like, that's cool. Like, if we
Yeah.
do this canted, what if we do it on a really long, a really wide lens, and I get right in there with the Steadicam? And it's like, yeah, I love that. And then we do it. And then you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm so happy we did that.
Yeah, that's and then you it's these happy discoveries
Yeah.
that everyone on set and all the different departments can have those.
Absolutely. It's scarier because I think you're putting yourself out there more sometimes, and sometimes you're like, did I go too far?
Right.
But again, if you've done the prep work, that goes away a little more.
Yeah. And so you mentioned the Steadicam there. Do you operate Steadicam?
I don't. No.
No? You have
no.
somebody who does that for
I've got
you?
a couple great Steadicam guys that I love.
Yeah, what-
In this case, Daniel Spitz was my my B-cam operator and my Steadicam operator. But David Baldwin, I went to USC with, and Justin Brown's a guy that I know from University of Wisconsin-Madison. We met out here, but we're both Badgers at Hart.
Yeah.
Those guys are great.
Yeah.
And I've, and you just, the more you're in this world, because you work with great people, those great people work a lot. So
Yes.
you don't always get, your first couple choices. But you're able to, there's a nice group of people that are great. And once you're in those pockets, I think you work a lot more. So
Yeah, I've tried a Steadicam vest, and
they're heavy.
It's no joke.
No, it's no joke.
And then I've used like the handheld gimbals, like a Movi or a Ronin.
Sure.
And that's no joke. So like on my little projects, I use like an Osmo. That's like a handheld gimbal, and it's like for what I need, it's my perfect Steadicam.
Have you ever tried an Easy Rig?
No, what's that?
An Easy Rig is essentially it's a vest that goes on you, and you wear the majority of the weight on your hips, like you should, like a hiking pack. And then out of it, it's
Oh, right.
basically it's like a scorpion tail, but it's a piece of metal, and then there's a line that you connect the camera onto, and you can do it all day. I mean,
Yeah.
they're great. I mean, you won't go home with a sore back. You'll go home with tired legs.
Right.
But like, so for instance, for Foursome, there wasn't a lot of cutting. So the Elianne Fenton and Daniel both had cameras on them for 6 or 7 hours a day. So
Yeah.
Easy Rigs was like, great. No one has to feel like they have to complain. They can keep rolling like the director wants them to stay in the scene.
Yeah.
And it still has a handheld feel.
Yeah, and I saw on your reel there was like an aerial shot. We're using that. Is that like from a helicopter? Is that a drone?
What was
There's
that
something like
aerial
over a
shot?
bridge.
Oh, that was actually just shooting from a bridge
Yeah.
onto another bridge.
Nice.
But yeah, drones. they're great, and I think what's nice is it's opened up aerial photography to lower budgets, because it used to be you'd have to get a helicopter
Yeah.
that had a gimbal on it that you put your camera onto, or you're shooting off the side of the helicopter, which
Yes.
is not safe. And drones they're great. You know, the issue with drone, they all present their own challenges. It's like
Totally.
any tool. You just want to make sure you're using the right tool for the job. And I think more than ever, and it's going to keep getting better, the drones, the video footage was always my biggest complaint. Unless I got an octocopter where I could put
A
you
real
know,
camera.
yeah, a Mini on, a Alexa Mini on, or you know, a Red or whatever. You just couldn't fly those things, and you can't get that thing inside somewhere. So like for Nightmare Cinema, the concept is all these people that are in these 5 little anthologies, they go to a movie theater, a haunted movie theater, which is the Rialto Theater in Pasadena, which is amazing. And they kind of see their life before them on the big screen.
What?
Yeah, it's-
I can't wait for this movie. It sounds like right up
it's
my
cool.
alley.
No, it's really cool. And Mickey Rourke plays the projectionist in it, so
What?
he's like the conduit for the whole.
That's great.
Anyway, and we had, you know, Mick was directing those, and Mick Garris was directing those, and he wanted to do a drone shot. And you know, I'm sitting there trying to figure out which drone, and you know, we settled on the AS7, but because we were inside, you couldn't. It didn't. GPS wouldn't work, so they were
Yeah.
flying it on the cuff, trying not to.
Yeah.
And they actually did put the helicopter in the wall once, and they were amazing, by the way. I mean, this was, you know, it was unfortunate, but they couldn't, you know, you can't see your depth with those, and and it couldn't tell it was like I think it was a hexacopter, couldn't tell it where it was, but it was all fine. We did another take. It was beautiful in the movie. It is amazing, and you couldn't have got that shot without that piece of equipment.
Yes.
You couldn't have done it. So it's one of those things where, you know, I think they can be a little overused because they're so accessible and because they look cool.
Right.
But if you can use it effectively to tell your story, that's when I start to get the goosebumps. And I don't even think, oh, that's a drone shot, because it's in service to the story.
Yes, definitely. And I think it always should serve the story.
Yeah.
You know, because you can definitely just use a drone shot or any kind of fancy shot just because you have the stuff to make it fancy, and it is like weird.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. You're
Yeah.
forcing a round peg in a square
Yeah.
hole. That's any toy, though.
Yeah, just save your fancy shots, put them on Instagram, and be like, look, I shot this fancy shot.
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole. I'm like very anti-fancy, even though it's cool.
Yeah.
You know, you asked for some tips and tricks. One of my biggest tips is put the money in your department, in the crew, and not in the toys. So like, you know, anytime you're given a budget, at least at my level, you're kind of have numbers, and then you have to make these numbers work. So you prioritize. It's the first thing I do. So the big priorities for me are always going to be what camera I'm shooting on, and if I can get in lenses. Those are always a priority for me. And then it's crew. Pretty much right after that is how many guys can I get? You know, what level of guys can I get? You know, can I get my guys on this?
Right.
And then it's like, okay, I know we have like, you know, 7 jib shots and, you know, a couple drone shots, this and that. Okay, now how do we afford these other things? I think people put so much emphasis on the toy that they don't consider the other stuff, because there's so many ways to skin a cat. But for me, your support system, which is my crew, is everything. So making sure they're happy, they're treated well.
Yes.
And productions are usually great about this. But just making sure that they're committed and they feel like their opinion is important and their contribution is important makes you a better filmmaker. I mean, managing your departments is crucial. And the good news about it is whatever questions you ask someone, like, what do you think of this? You know, they'll give you their honest opinion, and it's up to you to either take it or leave it in a very nice way, either way. But you get to take credit for it as the DP.
Yeah. Oh, good.
You know, my first AC, Matt Borak, is I love him to death, and he's the first person I'll be like, what do you think of this? And he'll give me his opinion, and it's really nice to have that support system, because you only make a movie with support. It takes a
Yes.
village to make a movie.
Yes, it's a big collaborative art project.
Huge.
And you have to work with people. So like gadgets are there, but the people have to run the gadgets.
Absolutely.
You have to keep them happy. So what kind of advice do you have for people who are wanting to get into this?
You know, you got to shoot. Just have as few responsibilities and commitments in life as possible. So try not to have kids or a mortgage or car payments. Or well, you have to have a car in LA. But work for free. Get out there. Find people you think they're good filmmakers, and if it's right, be friends with them. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to make movies with people you like and your friends. You do. You want to be able to hire your friends on stuff. That's how these crews run for so long, is they actually like each other.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of talented people out there. So, you know, getting in with people that you think are talented is really important. You know, find good material if you can. Write good material if you can. Beg, borrow, and steal for gear. You know, film school is great. It's not for everyone. I went to film school. It was great for me, and it made me who I am, but that's not for everyone.
Right.
So my advice is just get out there, work for free, get on sets as a first AC or a second AC, and get right behind that camera and see how they lit. Study. We have the most amazing library of material. Every movie you've ever seen is your library. So go out and study the greats. Be inspired, be enthusiastic. Nothing great is ever done without enthusiasm.
Yes.
That's for sure.
And 3 films that inspire you that kids at home should watch.
Oh, jeez.
Kids at home.
Well,
You are all adults also, probably.
so I'll just try and think of the first 3 that come to my mind, but
doesn't have to be top 3, just 3 that you're into.
3 that I'm into. No Country for Old Men, which is a Coen Brothers movie, which Roger Deakins shot, is an amazing movie from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, you look at anything Roger Deakins does.
Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, you know, Rodrigo Prieto shot a movie called Beautiful, which was. He did with Iñárritu, I think like 2 films before Birdman, and then they did. They didn't do the. I'm sorry. Well, someone else did those movies. Sorry, it was Emmanuel Lubetsky did those. But Rodrigo Prieto is an amazing cinematographer, and Beautiful is an amazing movie. And then a third one, oh man. You know, I actually really enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxies.
Yeah.
I mean, I think just popcorn movies are great. You know. I think knowing what kind of cinematographer you want to be is really important. And part of that is knowing what movies you love. I just saw Die Hard like last week because I was like watching my kids, and like I'm like, well, I can watch half of it now and I'll watch half of it in a couple days. And that movie is so good, and the script is amazing, and that like it makes me passionate about what I want to do seeing movies like this. So if you find those movies, maybe those are the kind of movies you want to make, you know? So try and get into those. You know?
I'm due for a Die Hard rewatch.
It is the best Christmas movie ever made.
It is. It really is. It was like definitely a few Christmases ago as I watched that, and it's time.
Yeah.
It's time to see it again. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So many good insights. Tell everyone where they can find you on the internet.
Oh, so my website is www.awrusso.com. It has all my contact information as well as my agent if you want to work with me. And it has all my contact information there, so you can find me there.
Very nice, very nice. And then you can see Jackals now. That's available on demand and
iTunes,
and Amazon Video.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I think it's still in theaters in select cities, the 12 cities out there. But go see it any way you want.
And then you've got lots of cool things coming up. What are a few of those projects?
Nightmare Cinema is going to be coming up, hopefully at the beginning of the year. And Gone Are the Days is the Western that I'm really excited about with Tom Berenger, Lance Hendrickson, and Danny Trejo. So
Awesome.
that should be fun.
Thank you for joining me. And thank you guys for watching. I am Marielou Mandl. You can find me all over the internet at Marielou Mandl. And I will see you next time on the Fly Filmmaking.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.